Hello students, welcome to FS Cloud. My name is Shashmita. We have an app by the name Careers Cloud which you can go and download through the Play Store. Once you have downloaded the application, you will easily be able to log in using your Gmail ID. And once you have logged in, you will be redirected to this page where you will be getting this URL. And there will be option for home, all courses, my courses and doubt section in this application. You will be getting multiple PDFs, multiple content on daily basis that will be enhancing your learning. Under Crack Current Affairs, you will be able to see multiple options. First one is Current Affairs English. We upload the day-to-day basis news in the English format. And apart from English PDF, we also provide them in Hindi format. And this banking awareness, we upload a PDF every month. So this PDF will contain the banking news, banking and the finance news of that respective month. And Current Affairs exam PDF will have two categories. One is that most important news of that particular month will be uploaded in this Current Affairs exam PDF. And also exam perspective PDF will also be uploaded. And next is Special CA. This will contain Union Budget, Economic Survey, and also the most important events that had taken place globally as well as nationally. And next most important is topic wise. So the entire news of that particular month will be segregated into different topics. And in order to recollect whatever you've read, we also provide you with topic wise quizzes. Apart from that, we also provide state current affairs. Now, here if you see, we provide you with the day-to-day PDF, and this we provide you with the weekly PDF. So that particular week news will be compiled into a PDF and in question and answer format in English and will be uploaded here. And to enhance your learning, you can also, to enhance and strengthen your learning, you can also attend the quiz. Here we provide you with the entire news of that particular week. But here we take the top 60 most important news and we upload it in this PDF in question and answer format. Apart from weekly, we also provide you the monthly ones. This PDF will contain detailed view of that particular month news, and this will have a brief format of the same news. This will be in the form of a question and answer format, and this will have the top 100 question and answer of that particular month. We also provide you with the PIB news on a day-to-day basis, which you can go and read in these particular tabs. Apart from that, we also provide the Union Budget and Economic Survey. You can also attend you can read after reading the PDF. You can also go and attend the quiz. This is available in the Special CA category. We also provide state level current affairs. So this will be very helpful for students who are preparing for state level exams. For example, if you are preparing for Tamil Nadu state level exams, then you can click this tab and you will be able to see all the current affairs or news related to Tamil Nadu. Apart from that, we also provide PDF from the exam perspective. Suppose you are preparing for RBI Assistant Mains, then this tab will contain 5 to 6 months of current affairs, which has high probability of being asked in RBI Assistant Mains. Similarly, for SBI PO, RRB PO, Clerk Mains, all these are being given under this section. And also we provide separate content-wise, topic-wise current affairs like national affairs, government schemes, international affairs, banking and finance, economy and businesses, MOUs and committees and meetings. All these different types of news are segregated in these particular categories. Hello students, welcome to our new initiative. In this initiative, we will be uploading the weekly current affairs on banking and finance section. So this will be uploaded on every Monday. And so on the whole, per month, you will have totally 4 videos related to this topic. And apart from just providing you with the banking and finance news, we also provide you the conceptual explanation so that this will enhance and also strengthen your knowledge about these topics. Today, we will be covering July 3rd week finance and banking awareness news. Moving to the first news. So first news is about new rules for passive mutual fund schemes introduced by SEBI. So if you see, there are 2 types of funds. One is passive and another one is active. In active mutual fund, you will have a fund manager who will actively look into the mutual funds. That is, he will continuously look into the market and buy and sell stocks in order to improve the performance of the mutual fund. But here, in this case of passive mutual fund, there will be a fund manager, but the tracking will be based on an index. That is, this passive mutual fund will track or mimic an index. So whatever the stocks are there in the index, whatever weightage is provided to the stocks in that index, same will be followed by this passive mutual fund as well. So here, the role of a fund manager is very less, but in active, there will be continuous buying and selling of funds or stocks. In passive, just a mimic of an index is performed. That is why it is called as passive mutual fund. That is called as active mutual fund. Now here SEBI has brought new rules regarding this passive mutual fund. Now let us look into the details. So if you see passive mutual funds, they track a benchmark index and try to mimic its performance. So these funds follow a benchmark and aim to deliver returns in tandem with the benchmark. But in the case of active mutual fund, they employ a fund manager who participate in all buying and selling decisions. The fund manager manages the fund with active investing by studying the market forces and the economy. So now the SEBI has recently implemented stricter regulations for passively managed mutual fund. Now, why do people go into passively managed mutual fund? Because it has comparatively lower risk compared to this active management. So that is why they prefer going to the passively managed mutual fund. So for this, stricter regulations has been introduced by SEBI. So these rules aim to mitigate concentration risk and to promote greater diversification with these funds. So if you see, there is an investment limit for the passive mutual fund currently set. So a mutual fund, the various participants in a mutual fund are sponsor, fund manager, and a trust. These are the various participants of a mutual fund. So if you see, as per SEBI new rules, passive mutual fund except for the equity oriented ETF and index fund. So ETF, if you know that, it's similar to mutual fund only, but here they also, ETF also invest in stocks, but here they are traded in the stock exchange. So their value keeps changing every second in the stock exchange. So this rule is applicable for all passive mutual fund except for equity oriented ETF and index fund. So what is the rule is that now they are restricted from investing more than 25% of their net assets in listed securities of companies belonging to the sponsor group. So as I said, these sponsor, fund manager and trust are the various participants in the mutual fund, right? So the sponsor will have so many companies, like a group of companies, listed companies already there in the stock exchange. So this mutual fund will invest in that sponsor's companies. So now they have said that except for equity oriented ETF and index fund, they are allowed to invest only up to the maximum of 25% of their net assets in the companies belonging to the sponsor group. And in case of equity oriented ETF and index fund, they are allowed to invest up to 35% of their net asset value in the sponsors group companies. So remember, for passive mutual fund other than equity oriented ETF and index funds, it is the 25% in sponsor group companies. And in case of equity oriented ETF and index funds, the maximum investment amount is 35% in the sponsor group companies. So these are the first two changes. Moving to the third, SEBI has defined a new index called widely tracked and non-bespoke indices. So these are nothing but these are the funds which have assets under management around 20,000 crore and above. So if you see, widely tracked and non-bespoke indices which are tracked by passive funds, or they serve as a primary benchmark for the actively managed funds, and they have asset under management around 20,000 crore and above. These are called as widely tracked and non-bespoke indices. So here the AMFI, that is Association of Mutual Fund in India, is responsible for updating and publishing this list of indices that we just saw, right? The non-bespoke and widely tracked indices, they have to be updated and published on a biannual basis, that is twice a year. So these should be published on April 15th and October 15th each year. And the base list of approved indices should be, the data should be as of March 31st and September 30. The data is as of March 31st and September 30, and the publishing date is April 15th and October 15th. So AMFI should only publish these indices biannually, that is on April 15th and October 15th. So if you see, as of 30th June 2024, SEBI has identified 21 such indices. So all these indices will have asset under management more than 20,000 crore. So as identified 21 such indices based on asset under management, which include popular benchmarks such as you see Nifty 500, Nifty 50, Nifty Midcap 150. These are the various indices that SEBI has identified until now. So rebalancing, next change is that rebalancing of passive schemes. So it is mandatory for passive schemes that are not currently in line with these approved indices. So we know that passive schemes, they mimic indices. So whatever stocks are invested in the indexes, the same stocks will also be there in this passive scheme with the same weightage. So they have to align with these indices on a regular basis. So suppose if they are currently not in line with these approved indices, then a timeline of 30 days, 30 business days has been provided by SEBI to make it in line with these approved indices. Let us read it. It will be mandatory for passive schemes that are not currently in line with these approved indices to rebalance their portfolio within 30 business days with approval from the investment committee. So it has to be in line with the above indices. If at all it is not in line, then 30 business days is provided for them to be in line with these indices. The next is that suppose within 30 days they are not able to be in line with or align themselves with the above indices, then the asset management company will be required to provide explanation to the investment committee. So I'm not able to align it or rebalance it with this indices with the 30 days that you have provided, and this is the reason this has to be submitted to the investment committee. And then the investment committee, if you see, they may extend the rebalancing timeline by up to an additional of 60 business days. So first it is 30 business days. If at all you are not able to rebalance it, you have to provide an explanation to the investment committee, and the investment committee, if satisfied with the explanation, they may extend the rebalancing timeline up to another 60 business days. So I hope you understand this point. Next is that consequence of non-compliance. Suppose 30 business days is also provided. Another 60 business days is also provided. But now, in spite of these many days, these many extension, you have still not rebalanced your passive mutual fund. In that case, what will happen? So in case a fund fails to rebalance within the mandated time frame, which includes any extension guaranteed, then SEBI will prohibit the concerned AMC from launching any new schemes. So you cannot launch any new schemes until the existing scheme is rebalanced. So you have to rebalance your existing scheme, then only any new scheme can be launched. Also, the AMC cannot levy exit loads, that is fee charge, when the investors redeem their units on the existing investors in the non-compliance scheme. So now you have not rebalanced. So one thing is that you cannot launch any new scheme. No new scheme can be launched. Second thing is that since you have not you have not rebalanced, then the customers will not like it, right? Okay, it does not rebalance with the indices, so I'd like to exit. Because you have not complied with the condition, the customer might exit, right? In that case, you should not charge any exit loads. So generally, there is an exit load which is charged by the mutual fund when a customer exits from the mutual fund. When he tries to sell his units, exit from the mutual fund, there will be an exit load charged. But since here the mutual fund itself has not complied with one of the conditions stated by the SEBI, you should not levy this exit load on the existing customer. So these are the various changes brought. So first, if you see in passive, the first condition, if you see the passive mutual fund, they are allowed to invest except other than ETF, that is equity oriented ETF and index fund. You can invest only up to 25% in the sponsor group companies, and in case of equity oriented ETF and index fund, you can invest up to 35% in the sponsor group companies. And then there is a bespoke indices that they have told, the SEBI has introduced. Here they will publish the indices on a biannual basis, that is twice a year this index will be published, and you have to rebalance your portfolio. The passive mutual fund have to rebalance that portfolio according to this indices within 30 business days. If at all you fail to do it, then you have to provide an explanation to this investment committee, and if the investment committee is satisfied with the explanation, then they will provide a 60 business days of extension. In spite of that, if you haven't rebalanced, then you cannot launch the new scheme until the rebalance is done, and second, you cannot charge any exit load to the existing customers. So these are the various changes that the SEBI has brought for the passive schemes. We have launched a new course called Static Banking Awareness course. Now this course will be helpful for students who are preparing for the banking exams and for the regulatory body exams. And also recently you would have seen Paytm Bank in news frequently. So when an aspirant reads this news, he would have ample number of questions like what is a payment bank, what are the norms for it, and which is the committee that has launched it. So this Static Banking Awareness course lays a foundation to the current banking and finance news. Now, you have to download our Careers Cloud to access this course. Once you have logged into our app, you can go and click this All Courses icon, and then you'll be redirected to this page. In this, you have to go and click the Static Banking Awareness course, and under the Details tab, you will be able to see a brief about this course. And under the part tab, it will contain all the contents, all the topics of the contents that are currently available in this course. We are working on this continuously and this will be completed within 2 months. Under the free tab, you can go and access one content, that is the origin and development content, for free. You can go and read this content and have an idea about this course. After reading this content, do attend the quiz that is also available under the same tab. Now, our team has allocated ample amount of time and resources to curate this content. We have created this content from various books and from various verified websites. Our content is better than any book that is available in the market. This is because we update this content on a dynamic basis. For example, there are currently 39 DRTs that are available in the country now. In future, if one more DRT is created or added, then it will become 40. So we would update this content on a dynamic basis. But in case of books, you have to wait for the next publication for this updated content. Nowadays, a lot of practical questions have been asked in the banking exams. For example, how many public sector banks are available on the stock exchange? Which is the payment bank that is being listed on the stock exchange? So, we try to cover as many practical questions as possible in this course. Apart from this, we also provide you a question bank that will contain around 3000 questions and the previous year questions along with it. We also have a dedicated tab that will release the important RBI notification and the frequent news released by the RBI. You can use this code B15 to avail 15% discount. This is one of the highest discounts that we have offered until now. So do avail this code B15 while you purchase the course. So RBI expands liberalized remittance scheme norms for investments via GIFT IFSC. Now, what is this liberalized remittance scheme? This was introduced in 2004. So previously, prior to 2004, if any of your sister or brother, if they were studying in abroad, then if you want to send some, if your parents wanted to send some money to them, then what is that? They needed approval from RBI. So individual remittance to that is to be sent abroad requires approval from RBI. So there are a lot of approvals required from RBI. RBI was also having so many approvals to be made. So that is why, to reduce this burden, this liberalized remittance scheme was introduced. So as per this, the person resident in India can remit up to $250,000 abroad without any approval from RBI. So you don't have to require approval from RBI. Under this liberalized remittance scheme, you can send money up to $250,000 for maintenance of your relatives or for your children or sister whosoever is studying in abroad. For that, you can send money up to $250,000 under this liberalized remittance scheme. So if you see, under the liberalized remittance scheme, authorized dealers may freely allow remittances by resident individuals, including minors, up to $250,000 per financial year for any permitted current or capital account transaction or a combination of both. So now if you see, now in case of IFSCA, generally I am telling Indian residents who are planning to, generally if an Indian resident wants to buy something in abroad, like if he wants to invest in the equity markets, equity stocks, that is in US or London, then he has to open a bank account in a foreign jurisdiction. That is, any foreign jurisdiction means outside India, he has to open a bank account. Then only he can invest in the global equity markets. Similarly, parents intending to finance their children's foreign education also have to open a foreign bank account. So first is, if you want to invest in the global equity market, you have to open a bank account in foreign jurisdiction. And second is that if you want to finance your children's foreign education, then also the parents has to open a foreign bank account. This is a general thing. Just remember this. So now if you see, there is liberalized remittance scheme, there have been changes brought in case of IFSC. Now what is it? Currently what is the situation, and now what is the changes that have been brought? So if you see, at present, remittances under LRS to IFSC can be made only for the following reasons. So if you see IFSCA, it is like a foreign jurisdiction but present within the geography of India. So this is located in the gift city, which is in Gujarat. So if you see, if you want to, if as a manufacturer or any company sending goods to this gift city, then this is not considered as a transfer, this state to state transfer, but this is considered as an export or an import. Just like if suppose a person in Tamil Nadu wants to send some goods to Maharashtra, then it will be considered as a state transfer, right? But here, if a manufacturer in Maharashtra wants to send goods to gift city, then that will be considered as an export and not as a state transfer, because gift city is considered as a foreign jurisdiction, though it is located in the geography of India. So if you want to send, suppose your son or your daughter is studying in the IFSC, in a university that is located in IFSC in gift city, then if you want to send some money, then that will not be considered as a transfer, normal bank transfer, but that will be considered as a liberalized remittance scheme. So that remittance will fall under this LRS. I hope you understand. IFSC is nothing but a foreign jurisdiction in our geography of India. So if you do any transfer to that IFSC, that will be considered as a remittance under LRS and not as any normal bank transfer. So if you see what are the remittance under LRS that are currently allowed. So until now, what are the remittance that are currently allowed? So if you see, making investments in IFSC in securities such as bonds or equities in companies outside India. So you can invest in securities that are in companies that are outside India, and also you can make payment of fees for education to foreign universities or for foreign institutions in IFSC. So these are the two things that are currently allowed. That is, you can invest in securities in companies that are outside India, and also you can make payment fees for education to foreign universities or foreign institutions in IFSC. So these are now the current conditions, or for these purposes, remittance under LRS is allowed. Now, so for these purposes, residents can open foreign currency account in the IFSC. But now, if you see, Reserve Bank of India has widened the scope of remittances made to IFSC under the liberalized remittance scheme. So it has increased the purpose for which the money can be used in IFSC. So previously, you can buy stocks of, Apple or Alphabet or Google. All these securities, they can be bought in IFSC. Now, apart from that, few other scope or few other uses or purpose have been added or have been introduced by the Reserve Bank of India in the IFSC. So, if you see now, you can use this LRS for investments enabling transaction like insurance, educational loan payments in the foreign currency. So, if you see, there is a foreign currency account. Here, the money here is stored in the various other foreign currency, right? Like if you see in dollars or yen, like that. In that terms, the money will be stored in this foreign currency account. So using that money, you can buy an insurance, just like you have insurance in our cities, like outside IFSC, like in India, in Maharashtra, in Madhya Pradesh and all. There are so many insurance being sold, right? Similarly, if a person is interested in buying an insurance from an insurance company in IFSC, so in IFSC also you have a lot of banks or insurance company and all, right? So here also they will sell insurance. So previously, if you want to buy an insurance from this IFSCA, it was not allowed. But now, if a person is interested, they are interested in the terms and conditions of that insurance policy, then now they can buy that insurance policy from the insurance company in IFSCA. For that, this money remitted under this LRS can be used. This is another additional purpose for which this money can be used, or new change that has been bought by Reserve Bank of India. And also the money stored, that is the foreign currency, in this foreign currency account, it can be used for educational loan payment. So one is that if you want to buy insurance policy, that also you can buy. For that, this can be used. And also for educational loan payment also, it can be used. This money can be used. And another one thing is that these new norms now allow residents in India to open fixed deposits in US dollars in bank account. So here we open accounts for the resident of India only in rupee, right? So if at all you think that the dollar is going to appreciate, then it is right to buy and store it in dollar form. So for that, you can open a foreign currency account in IFSC, and then there you can store your money in dollar form. So that purpose also can be used now. Previously that was not allowed. Previously you were not allowed to store it. You were not allowed to open a foreign currency account to open FD in US dollars. But now you are allowed to open a foreign currency account just to make or create an FD in US dollars. So if you see, this will help high net worth individuals to protect their asset against inflation and depreciation against the US dollars. So the new thing is that you can buy an insurance policy, you can make educational loan payments in foreign currency, and third is also that you can open an FD in US dollars in the foreign currency account in GIFT IFSC. So if you see, by opening accounts in GIFT City, Indian individuals will be able to keep their funds within the Indian financial system. So this was already being provided. These kind of international hubs, financial hubs, they're also located in other countries. Like if you see in Dubai, in Singapore and all, there are similar IFSC, like IFSCA in India, there are similar financial units in international financial units in Dubai and Singapore as well. So all these were allowed in Dubai and Singapore, and that is why many residents in India were having foreign currency account in Dubai and Singapore and all. But now they can now open it in India itself. So you might be thinking, if they're already having a foreign currency account in Dubai and Singapore, why would they want to open it in IFSC? That is because here this is managed within the Indian financial system. So the IFSCA, if you see, it is managed within the Indian financial system, but still it allows you to participate in the global financial activities. So that in Dubai, it is outside India, right? So you don't know how the financial system will be in future. You cannot keep monitoring. But here you know how it is in the how the Indian financial system, how it is in India. Because you are resident in India, you will have more knowledge about the Indian financial system. So here, this is an advantage to the extra advantage to the high net people also who have FCA account in Dubai or Singapore. They can open it now in IFSCA for these purposes. So Indian individuals will be able to keep their funds within the Indian financial system while still participating in the global financial activities. So the main thing is that previously the LRS scheme in IFSCA was limited for certain transactions only, but now it has been increased. That is, now they can do any current account or capital account transactions and remittances that are permissible under the LRS in the IFSCA. So previously it was limited, now the scope has been increased. This is the main thing that you have to know. Next news is that RBI has approved Brickwork rating for the bank risk weighting claims. So Brickwork rating is nothing but a rating agency. Just like you have Moody's, right? So similarly, this is also a rating agencies. Now this has been approved by RBI for bank risk weighting claims. So let us read the news in detail. So if you see, Reserve Bank of India, it has permitted banks to use the ratings of Brickworks Rating India Private Limited 2 years after the central bank had instructed its regulatory entities that no fresh rating would be obtained from the firm. So if you see, this has been providing ratings for banks for a long period, but in between 2 years, it was not allowed to provide ratings because of discrepancies found by the regulator. So Brickworks, in between 2 years, it stopped providing ratings to the banks. But now it has resumed. Now RBI has permitted it to resume and provide ratings to the banks. So listing out certain conditions. Now you can provide. Now RBI has told Brickwork that you can provide ratings to the banks. That if you see, the bank raised money via certificate of deposits, right? And also there is also commercial paper that companies use. All these instruments, financial instruments, they require a rating attached to it. So these kind of ratings are provided by various rating agencies, and Brickwork is one of its kind. But now since 2 years it had been stopped due to discrepancies, now RBI has listed out certain conditions that this Brickwork has to follow. So if you see, the condition is that the RBI said that in respect of fresh rating mandates, rating may be obtained from Brickwork ratings for bank loans not exceeding 250 crore. So if you see, not just any financial instrument like commercial paper or certificate of deposit, even bank loans. So bank provide loans to big corporates, right? So they are in huge, like 100,000 or 500 crores. For that also, an external rating is a must. So that can also be provided by this Brickwork. But now RBI has told that only if the loan amount is less than 250 crore, only then you can provide this, provide your rating to that loan. If the loan amount is beyond 250 crore, then you cannot provide the rating. This is in case of fresh rating. Fresh rating in the sense that first time that corporate is going to avail a loan from this bank. then that time it is a fresh rating. Okay, so when the corporate is going to avail from a bank for the first time, then that rating is called as a fresh rating. For that, this brickwork cannot give rating for loans that are beyond 250 crores. Only if the loan amount is less than 250 crores, then only it can provide this rating. In respect of existing ratings, brickwork may undertake rating surveillance irrespective of the rated amount of the residual tenure of such loans. So in case of existing rating, so already a bank has provided loan to this corporate. Then also on a certain time, like once in 3 years or 5 years, there will be a certain time within which another rating should also be provided, so that bank has to know, right, is this rating in the same, is the standard of the corporate the same as such that we have given. Suppose the loan had been given in 2015. That time the rating was same, maybe AA, provided by a rating agency of that corporate. Okay, that rating agency gives AA rating to that corporate. Now after maybe the loan tenure is around 15 years. So after 5 years or 3 years, again the bank has to take a rating from a credit rating agency, because it has to know whether the rating of the corporate has gone down, whether the level of the corporate has gone down, or is it still the same. It has to know, right? So it will again take for the existing loan borrowers also. That is what is that in respect of existing ratings. So for that there is no loan amount fixed. Only for new rating, it cannot provide rating beyond 250 crores loans. For existing, there is no loan amount fixed. And in case of working capital facilities, if you see for existing rating on working capital facilities over 250 crore, this rating surveillance is limited to the next renewal. So only up to the next renewal it can provide. After the next renewal, it cannot provide the rating. So in case of working capital facilities over 250 crore, only up to the next renewal, that is every year you have to renew this working capital. So only up to the next renewal, this surveillance is limited. Okay. So the MD and CEO of Brickwork Rating India Private Limited is Alok Kedia, and it is headquartered in Bengaluru, that is Karnataka. Next is that Bank of Baroda, Maharashtra, Bank of Maharashtra and SBI launched deposit schemes to fund credit demand. So this development came after Reserve Bank of India Governor Shaktikant Das has cautioned about the persistent gap in deposit and credit growth. So if you see, recently a meeting was held between the governor and the MD and CEO of the public and private sector bank, and here RBI governor has concerned that had told about its concern that the CD ratio, if you see the credit to deposit ratio, it has been increasing over past few years. So it has even touched 80%, and few banks, like if you see HDFC and all, it has touched even 100%, which means whatever it has received as a deposit, it is giving back as loan. So here it is very, very risky, right? You should have some buffer, and this is becoming a very credit crunch also. That is, like, a lot of credit is growing, but the deposit is not growing in that rate. So suppose the credit is growing in the rate of 15% per annum, but the deposit growing is only at 10% or 8% per annum. So in this case, the bank is finding very difficult to fund its credit. In that case, since it is not able to receive that many deposit, what it does is that it issues certificate of deposits, and from that money it issues credits. So now this concern has been raised during the recent meeting, and because after this concern has been raised, or after this meeting, few banks, they have launched few deposit schemes with a higher interest rate to attract more deposits. So one such bank is that Bank of Baroda. If you see, it has launched BOB Monsoon Dhamaka. So this BOB Monsoon Dhamaka deposit scheme, it offers deposits with two tenure buckets. So one is that 7.25% per annum for 399 days and 7.15% for 333 days. And the scheme came effect from 15th July and is applicable for all retail deposits less than 3 crore. And similarly, for the senior citizens, it is 0.5% higher, that is 7.75% and 7.65%. So the BOB Monsoon Dhamaka deposit scheme. The next is Bank of Maharashtra. So Bank of Maharashtra special FD scheme. So the Pune-based Bank of Maharashtra, it has launched a special scheme with 4 buckets for deposits up to 10 crores. So the different interest rates are 6.9% for 200 days, 7.1% for 400 days, 7.15% for 666 days and 7.25% for 777 days. The last, if you see, SBI's Amrit Vrishti scheme. Here, the fixed deposit, it offers higher interest rates and addressing the requirement of both domestic and NRI customers. So what rate does this Amrit Vishri scheme offer is that it offers an interest rate of 7.25% per annum for 444 days, and in case of senior citizen it is 7.75 days. So this scheme, it came effect from 15th July 2024 and is valid up to 31st March 2025. This is to address the cash crunch or the deposit crunch that the banks are facing. So if you see about State Bank of India, the chairman is Dinesh Kumar Kara, and in case of Bank of Baroda, it is the chairman is Hasmukh Adya and MD is Debadit Chand, and Bank of Maharashtra, the MD and CEO is Nindu Saxena. And you know that Dinesh Kumar Kara term is going to end in August month, and FSIB has appointed the next SBI chairman. Now, tell me that who is the next SBI chairman appointed by FSIB in the comment section. Next is about the GDP growth projection. So ADB, Asian Development Bank, kept India's GDP growth projection for 2024 at 7%. So recently the Asian Development Outlook July 2024 has been released, and in that it has maintained the GDP forecast for India at 7% for the financial year 25. And for the financial year 26, it is expected that Indian economy will grow at 7.2%. Similarly, the inflation projection are 4.6% for financial year 25 and 4.5% for financial year 26. Now tell me the inflation projection by RBI for financial year 25. So if you see, now why has it maintained the 7%? Why has it not reduced it? Why it is still telling that no, India will grow at 7% for financial year 25, and why is it increased it to 7.2% for financial year 26? The reasons are these. It is because agriculture is expected to recover due to above normal monsoon forecast. Investment demand remains robust, driven by strong private sector investments. The service sector's growth is projected to outpace the merchandise growth. Merchandise growth is nothing but goods. So the service sector is expected to outpace the merchandise growth. And the last one is that industrial sector is expected to see strong growth fueled by both manufacturing and construction. So agriculture is also good, investment demand is also good, service sector is going to outpace the merchandise growth, and the industrial sector growth is also expected to be good, fueled by manufacturing and construction. So all these points, if you see, it can be used in essay. You can use this in your essay writing. All these points will be helpful. If you also see, the central government has budgeted 11.1 lakh crore on capex for financial year 25. And ADB also mentioned that the central government's stronger than expected fiscal position could further boost the growth. So if you see, actually the budget estimate for financial year 24 for the fiscal deficit, it was 5.9%, and then the revised estimate was reduced to 5.8%, and then recently in the provisional estimate we saw that it got reduced to 5.6%. So this was well within the budget estimate, and this gave a confidence to both the Indian investors and the foreign investors. So this is also one of the reasons why ADB has made a good projection of GDP for India. And also mention in the comment section that what will be the fiscal deficit for financial year 25. What is the budget estimate for the fiscal deficit for financial year 25? The next news is about a green loan secured by the REC Limited. So if you see REC Limited, which is a Maharatna company of India, it has secured a 5-year tenure green loan of worth 31.96 billion yen from the Deutsche Bank AG, which is located in GIFT City. So from the GIFT City branch of Deutsche, it has secured 31.96 billion yen. So if you see, this is one of the first JPY, that is Japan yen denominated green loan transaction for the Deutsche Bank. So this green loan facility is a first of its kind collaboration between an Indian government entity and the Deutsche Bank AG. So this green loan, it will be used for sustainable projects, environmentally friendly projects. For all these purposes, this green loan amount will be used. If you see REC Limited, it has sanctioned around 3.59 trillion in the financial year 2023-24, and out of this 3.59 trillion, 1.36 trillion were allocated for the renewable energy projects. And also in future, that is by 2030, it plans to increase its share of loans for the renewable energy projects from 10% to 30%. So REC, it is a Maharatna company under the administrative control of Ministry of Power. So other than Maharatna, there is also called Miniratna, Navaratna. So this is the Maharatna company. So if you see, this is registered with the Reserve Bank of India as a non-banking financial company, public financial institution and infrastructure financing company. So the MD and the chairman and CMD is chairman and managing director, that is Vivek Kumar Devangan, and it is headquartered in New Delhi. And about Deutsche Bank, the CEO is Christian Sewing and it is headquartered in Frankfurt, that is Germany. So the main points to remember is that it has secured a loan amount of 31.96 billion yen REC from Deutsche Bank, which is in Gift City, which branch is in Gift City. These are the two main points to be remembered. So next is that NIPL and QNB signs a pact to launch QR code. So let us look into the details. So if you see NPCI International Payment Limited, that is NIPL, which is an international arm of NPCI, it has signed an agreement with the Qatar National Bank to provide QR, that is quick response code based UPI interface. We know that as a QR code, right? So using this QR code, you can scan and make payment, and this is now quite visible in a lot of merchants. Similarly, this has been introduced in the Qatar National, because a lot of Indian tourists visiting this Qatar can use this to make payments to the merchants. If you see, India constitutes the second largest group of international visitors to Qatar after Saudi Arabia. So this will really help the Indian tourists who are visiting Qatar. So this agreement will enable the Indian tourists to use UPI for payments at various locations in Qatar, including retail stores, tourist attraction, research sites and all. You can use this for a payment purpose. So if you see about NIPL was established in 2020 to promote the international use of RuPay and UPI. The CEO is Ritesh Shukla and it is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. So points to be remembered here is that NIPL, it has signed an agreement with Qatar National Bank for the QR code. Next is that a MOU, that is a MOU has been signed between Punjab National Bank and SAIL. So let us look into the details. So a memorandum of understanding has been signed with Punjab National Bank, between Punjab National Bank and Steel Authority of India. So this is to provide the sales employees a concessional rates loans. So this agreement or this MOU will enable the sales employee to avail loans at a concessional rate from the Punjab National Bank. So it can be educational loans, home loans, or even vehicle loans. All these can be availed by the sales employees at a concessional rate from the Punjab National Bank. So this, if you see, it is a win-win situation, because Punjab National Bank will have an extra customer base and SAIL Authority employees will also have access to loans at a lower interest rate. So if you see, this is an win-win situation for both the Punjab National Bank and the Steel Authority of India. So if you see Punjab National Bank, the MD and CEO is Atul Kumar Goyal. The tagline is the name you can bank upon. And if in case of Steel Authority of India, it is chairman is Amarendu Prakash, and it is also a Maharatna company just like REC. So next news is that appointment of a bank. So if you see, Arun Kumar Bansal is been appointed as the MD and CEO of Paytm Payment Bank Limited. So he was the former executive director of IDBI Bank Limited. So he succeeds Surendra Chawal, who has resigned from the position in April 2024. So Paytm Payment Bank Limited, it is an associate of 197 Communications. So this 197 Communication is the parent company of the Paytm. So this had received the scheduled bank status from the RBI in 2021. So the main matter to be noted here is that MD and CEO of Paytm Payment Bank is Arun Kumar Bansal. So next news is about Jio Financial. So if you see, RBI has approved the conversion of the Jio Financial Services Limited from an NBFC to a core investment company. So if you see, core investment company is a type of NBFC only. So what is does that? These core investment company, they will invest in the shares or bonds or loans in a company or a group of companies. So major of their assets will be in shares or bonds or loans. So if you see, according to RBI regulation, a CIC is a specialized type of NBFC with an asset size greater than rupees 100 crore. CIC, it holds not less than 90% of its net assets in the form of investments in equity shares, preference shares, bonds, debentures or loans in group companies. So now Jio Financials, it has got approval to convert into a core investment company. The MD and CEO of Jio Financial Services is Hitesh Kumar Sethia and is headquartered in Mumbai. So next news is about a new product that has been launched. So if you see, Bajaj Finserv Asset Management Limited, it has launched Bajaj Finserv Savings Plus, a new financing product for the retail investors in order to invest their ideal savings. So this ideal savings which are lying in the savings account, right? So for you can invest that amount in this kind of funds, and this will give you a better rate of return than the savings bank interest rate. So it enables the investors to invest in Bajaj Finserv Liquid Fund and Bajaj Finserv Overnight Fund, which provides competitive returns and liquidity. So the minimum investment amount is rupees 100. So next is about a NABARD 750 crore agri fund launched by NABARD. So if you see, so NABARD has launched an agri fund for startups and rural enterprises. So AgriSure is agri fund for startup and rural enterprises to support the startup and agripreneurs through investment in sector specific and sector agnostic and depth AIF. So it is nothing but this has set up an agri fund. This is for the startups and rural enterprises. Here this agri fund is set up in the form of category 2 alternate investment fund. Okay. So there are three types of category alternate investment fund. One is 1, 2 and 3. So here it is set up as a category 2 alternate investment fund and the total value is 750 crore. So this amount will be used for promoting innovation and sustainability in the agriculture sector. So who will manage this 750 crore? It will be NAB Ventures Limited. So NAB Ventures Limited, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of NABARD, will manage this 750 crore, which is a category 2 alternate investment fund. So let us break this investment. So this 750 crore, this can be broken into three parts. The 250 crore will be contributed by the Department of Agriculture, that is Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare will contribute 250 crore. Another 250 crore will be from NABARD and the third 250 crore will be from other institutions. So this is the breakup of the 750 crore fund. So remember, this is the category 2 alternate investment fund. It will be managed by NAB Ventures. And the total 750 crore from that 250 from Agriculture and Family Welfare Ministry and another 250 from NABARD and another 250 from the other institutions. Apart from that, there is also a greenathon, that is nothing but a hackathon. So what is the purpose of a hackathon generally? They will give you a problem statement and they will invite solutions from the people. So here there are three problem statements provided under this hackathon. The first one, if you see, smart agriculture on a budget. So we all tell that you have to follow smart agriculture. You have to incorporate the technology. The farmer has to incorporate the technology. But if the technologies are going to be very high or very costly, how can a farmer afford it? So for that purpose, this statement has been provided. So smart agriculture on a budget, tackling the high cost of advanced technologies for a small and marginal farmers. Second one is turning agri waste into profitable business opportunity. So there will be after harvesting and everything, there will be agri waste left, right? So using that, how can the farmer earn? So this is the second problem statement. So this will give you an additional revenue to the farmers. Third one is that tech solutions making regenerative agriculture remunerative. So to overcome the economic hurdles in adopting regenerative practices. These are the three problem statements. So remember, it is smart agriculture on a budget, turning agriculture waste into a profitable business opportunity, tech solution making regenerative agriculture remunerative. So these are the three problem statements. Do remember these three problem statements. It can come in the exam. So the chairman of NABARD is Shaji Krishnan and it is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. So next is about the Kotak 811, the banking of the Kotak Mahindra Bank. So let us look into the details. So if you see Kotak Mahindra Bank, it has revamped its Kotak 811 banking application. Just like YONO is the banking app of SBI, Kotak 811 is the banking app of the Kotak Mahindra Bank. So it has included certain features to increase the security in this app. So let us look into the key features. So the first one is that safe and secure UPI transaction. So high level of safety and security features have which enable the customers to make secure UPI transaction. Second is monitoring of the transaction. So it has the extensive transaction history which makes it simple for users to monitor the transactions. Third is seamless money transfer. Fourth is that easy FD, fixed deposit booking, and the fifth one, that is the last one, is that easily manage credit cards. So customers, they can manage a credit cards using this Kotak 811 app. So remember the 5 features: safe and secure UPI, monitoring of transactions, seamless money transfer, easy FD, and easy managing credit cards. So the MD and CEO is Ashok Vaswani and it is headquartered in Mumbai. The next is that Branch X becomes the India's first neo bank to launch ONDC loans for financial inclusion. So you know that Open Network Digital Commerce, it is a framework initiated by the Indian government to democratize digital commerce. Just like you have Amazon and Flipkart, right? You can go and order it. There are multiple sellers there who sell their products. Similarly, if you want to buy a product which is not there on Amazon, then you have to go create an account in Flipkart and search for the product, right? But this ONDC, here you don't have to be in Amazon, you don't have to create an account in Amazon or Flipkart. All the small sellers and big sellers, they can create their account in ODC, which is comparatively lesser amount and lesser time and easily convenient than the other e-commerce sites. So this is really helpful for the small players. So this connects the buyers, that is the buyers, to the ONDC network via a buyer application. So there will be, just like Amazon and Flipkart, there will be an application, and from that the buyer can create an account in that, and here you can access all the sellers. All the sellers will onboard in this ONDC and they can sell their products in this ONDC. So here, first time a personal loan solution has been provided. So if you see Mumbai-based Branch X India Private Limited, a leading neobank innovator, has launched India's first personal loan solution through the Open Network for Digital Commerce, which marks a significant step towards financial inclusion. So remember, the name is Branch X, and then it is a neobank loan product in ONDC. So these are the main keywords to be remembered. Branch X, which is a neobank, it has initiated a loan product in ONDC. Next is about a biodiversity bond. So let us look into the details. BBVA, VA, that is Banco Bilbao Vizcaya and Argentaria Colombia Bank, it is a bank, and the IFSC. So International Finance Corporation, which is an arm of World Bank, it has launched the world's first biodiversity bond. So the money collected from this bond or through this bond will be used to fund projects focused on reforestation, natural forest regeneration, climate smart agriculture. So for this purpose, this biodiversity bond money will be used. So if you see BBVA Colombia, it is the issuing bank. Why? So it will issue the bonds and it will collect the money. And while IFSC, if you see, it will establish the eligibility criteria and reporting indicators. So it acts as a structurer and investor. This will act as a structurer and investor, and BBVA Colombia will be the issuer bank that will issue the biodiversity bonds amount of around $70 million. So Colombia, if you see, it is the world's most biodiverse country per square kilometer. It is home to 14% of known plant species in the world. About IFSC, it is a part of the World Bank Group, and the managing director is Maktar Dio, and headquarters is in Washington DC. It was established in 1956. Now mention in the comment section the other arms of World Bank. Next is that Government of India raises first tranche of $2.5 million to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for the Palestine refugees. So for the Palestine refugees, Government of India has released $2.5 million. So if you see, India has contributed $35 million till 2023-24 to the UNRWA poor program like education, healthcare, relief and social services provided to the Palestine refugees. So if you see for financial year 2024, India has contributed around $35 million and now India has contributed $2.5 million until now. Till date now it has provided. In future also it might provide. So next is that Axis Bank completed the migration of Citibank customers to its platform. So if you see Axis Bank, it had acquired the Citibank India's customer business for rupees 11,000 crore in March 2023. So it by acquiring that, it was able to add 2.5 million Citi customers and rupees 39,900 crore in deposits via this acquisition. So this acquisition had taken place in March 2023 and the process is still going on. So if you see Axis Bank, it has officially completed the Citibank's credit card portfolio migration to its banking platform. So as part of the transition, Axis Bank has proactively moved all pre-registered payees and changed the IFSC code. So previously, if you see, all accounts would have had the IFSC code of the Citibank, right? Since you are a Citibank customer, the IFSC code will also be Citibank. Now, since Axis Bank has acquired, now it has to be changed into Axis Bank IFSC code. So this change has taken place wherever possible. That is what is mentioned here. So remember that Axis Bank acquired the Citibank consumer business for 11,600 crores. The next is about a GDP forecast. So if you see the World Economic Outlook update released by the IMF, it has revised the GDP projection of India. So previously it has projected 6.8% of GDP for financial year 25 and now it has increased it by 20 basis points to 7%. So remember, so now it is 7%. IMF projection is 7%. Similarly, for the world, for the globe, it is 3.2% in 2024 and 3.3% in 2025. And it has also stated that India and China will perform or will account for 50% of the global growth. So if there is a global growth happening, in that 50% of the global growth, reason would be India and China. And in case of advanced economies, the GDP growth forecast is 1.7% in 2024 and 1.8% in 2025. And in case of emerging market and developing economies, it has revised its growth by 10 basis points, that is to 4.3% for both 2024 and 25. So remember, it is 7% for India and for the globe it is 3.2% and 3.3%. And for the developed economies, it is 1.7% and 1.8%. And for emerging economy, it is 4.3% both the cases for both the years. So remember these data points, it is very important because they directly ask the GDP projection of IMF or World Bank or any other international organization. So do remember this GDP forecast. Next is that ADB approves $240 million in loans for the rooftop solar system in India. So if you see, ADB, it has approved $240 million to finance the rooftop solar system program across India. So this financing is part of the multi-tranche financing facility solar rooftop investment program. So this program was approved by ADB in 2016 and it was again restructured in 2023. So remember, it is ADB 240 million for rooftop. So if they ask like how much amount has been financed by ADB for the rooftop solar system program in India, then remember it is 240 million, and out of this 240 million, it will provide this 240 million to SBI and NABARD. For SBI, it will receive 90 million and NABARD will receive the remaining 150 million. So using this amount, the SBI will further provide loans to the customers who are planning to install a rooftop in their house or for other purposes in their factory or house. For that, it will provide loans. Similarly, NABARD will also go and finance for this rooftop solar projects. So this is this news. So SBI gets 190 million and NABARD gets 150 million. So mention in the comment section ADB headquarters and who is the head of ADB. Next is that Ireland replaced Mauritius to secure its 4th position on the preferred FPI destination list. So there are two types of foreign investment. One is FPI and one is FDI. FPI is for short term, Like they will immediately take back the money as soon as they get the profit that they had anticipated. And foreign direct investment is for long term. So here we are talking about the FPI destination list. So if you see in the FPI destination list, Ireland has replaced the Mauritius. So according to the National Securities Depository Limited, Ireland with asset under custody 4.41 trillion has replaced Mauritius to secure fourth. So Mauritius has moved to the fifth position and Ireland is in the fourth position. So the other first three position is occupied by, first is by the USA and asset under custody is around 30 lakh crore. Second is by Singapore and asset under custody is 7 trillion. And third is Luxembourg and in this case it is 5.57 trillion and fourth is Ireland. So remember this 1, 2, 3 and 4. So remember all the 4 ranks. So if you see National Securities Depository Limited, MD and CEO is Padmaja Chundu. Thank you for watching the session. I hope you had enjoyed it. We're also available in Telegram under the name AffairsCloud_official. We also have an Instagram handle. Apart from this, you can contact us directly on 9677333862 regarding any courses that we offer or regarding any payment issues. You can contact on directly on this number. Thank you.